Hello my friends and welcome to your practice. I'm Dionne and so glad that you're here. Today we are exploring the infamous burrito pose, to be precise, face down burrito pose. So if you've ever been to one of my classes, workshops, events, retreats even, online or in real life in the last goodness knows how many years, you're probably familiar with this one. But if not, or if you're revisiting, I really hope that this video is supportive for you to adapt and use at home or wherever you are. So before we start with the setup, let's talk about props real quick. So as you know, if you know anything about me, I'm a great lover of props, but you being able to use and adapt them as you like. So for this posture, I recommend having a blanket. If you don't have a blanket, perhaps use a towel, or you could even use a sheet from your bed or a couple of sheets if you've got them available. So use what works and leave the rest. You want the blanket to be ideally long enough to kind of cover your body as a guide. So just to show you here, just having quite a big old long blanket or towel if possible. So that's kind of the bare minimum that I would recommend for this one. But as always, you can take or leave this. I've also got an extra blanket available, as well as a small towel, which is kind of this sort of size, as well as a little flannel. Is that a universal language? Yeah, a flannel, and an eye pillow. So the reason I've got all of this is just to show you how you can interchange these props and make this work for you, okay? So let's begin with the big, long blanket or towel or whatever it is you're using, okay? So you're gonna take this and fold it in half in the long side, if that makes sense. So you wanna kind of really long, it's kind of challenging to do if you're on your own here, trying to fit in the frame of a video. So you fold it in half. And if you've got more time, recommend just doing what you can to sort of smooth out the creases to make it comfortable. And then you're going to fold it in half again. So it's going to be like a long and thin band, okay? And again, if possible, try and make your blanket or towel quite smooth, okay? So it's going to look something like that, like I've just rolled out some pasta, or the top of a pie. So you can lay that to the side for now, and then you're going to take the next blanket or medium-sized towel. Let's go for the blanket because it's right here and quite easy to use. You're going to pick something and just roll that up into a little sausage. So mine's kind of rectangle shape. Just going to kind of roll that up and put that to the side, okay? And then the next option is either an eye pillow if you have one available, or you can use a flannel. And that flannel, if you're using it, you can just like fold it in half and then in half again. So you're just trying to replicate kind of shape and padding of an eye pillow. There are really accessible ways to make eye pillows if you don't have one available. Perhaps I'll make a video on that at a different time, but yeah, for the sake of this video, those are the options that we're going with, okay? So you've got this long and thin blanket, you've got this optional extra blanket or towel, and you've got this eye pillow or small folded flannel, okay? So this long and thin blanket is going to be placed around your midsection, and I'll show you how to set up for that. Your second optional blanket or towel is going to go underneath the tops of your feet. But again, as I said, this is an optional prop. So you could have that towards the back of your mat if you're using one, or towards your feet. And the eye pillow, as you'd expect, or the flannel, which I'll just put to the side, that's going to go obviously, well, maybe it's not that obvious, but it's going to go underneath your forehead, okay? So you might want that to the top of your mat if you're using one. Okay, so let's start with the big boy, long and thin stretch of material. So what we're looking to do is to support our belly and support our forehead in this posture, because obviously we're going to be laying face down, because this is called the face down burrito pose. And the reason that we're doing that is so that we stimulate vagal tone, which is and can be helpful for helping us to regulate our nervous system. It's very complex when we start talking about nervous system activation and restoration, because we are all unique, we're all different, we're human. So for some people, they can find this posture really calming, especially if they're like quite wound up. I tend to go to this shape if I'm feeling really overwhelmed or anxious or stressed out. And I find it really helpful to soothe my system most days. But that's not always the case, because we are not the same at all times, every single day, every moment of the day, right? So for some people, they might feel more activated, okay? So just a word on that to take care of yourself. As always, with every single posture, if it's not working for you, don't worry about it, just leave it behind. There's lots of other options to explore, okay? So back to this long and thin stretch of material. Because we want to stimulate the belly area, what we want is to place this blanket over the belly. Ideally, you want to leave the front of your hips so you could probably feel, if that's comfortable for you, could feel the bones on the front of your hips, and you want to leave those free ideally. And I'll just show you why, because if I put the blanket down and then come to lay down on top of it, sometimes if the blanket is thicker, or towel if you're using it, and it's right over the hip bones, it can create a bit of a lift, which can in turn crunch a little bit into the low back. It can be very, very slight, but what we're looking for is for this posture to be super, super mellow, okay? So you want to make it as comfortable as possible. And I'll just come back up again to show you how we're going to place this blanket. So it's going to go over the front, and when you're on your belly, you've got the option to just cross the blanket over you, okay? So you can either come into it with the blanket already set up, or lay it down on the floor, whatever works. I'm gonna come on down. So I'm just making sure right now that my hips aren't hiked up, so you can probably see better as I'm lying on my front. If the blanket is right under those hip points, there can be a crunch, which you might be able to see there's more of a kind of arch in my back. So we're trying to avoid that. We want to feel a kind of settling of the system. We don't want to crank or put our bodies into any position that's not working, whether it's this posture or any other posture. Okay, so you can have the crisscross of the blanket. For many people that could be quite comforting, but it might not be for you. So if that's the case, you just unravel and leave the blanket out to the sides, okay? I'm kind of hovering, so hopefully you can still hear me okay. Right, so we've got the mid blanket set up. You can probably see my feet are just resting on this second blanket. It's actually in the perfect position right now. I don't need to adjust it. So what I'm doing here is supporting the kind of bones of my feet. It just creates a bit of extra luxe and comfort. So if that works for you, you can keep it. If that's not feeling good at all, you can skip it, okay? And finally, we've got the eye pillow. And this one can be helpful because we're going to come into the full pose. I'll demo it for you. You're going to bring your forehead to rest on the tops of your hands, elbows out to the side. It will look something like this. And all the eye pillow does is creates a lovely extra bit of luxe. So I just put an eye pillow on top of my top hand and then bring my forehead to rest on the eye pillow. So just a word on this, some extra kind of offerings that you can take or leave. If bringing your forehead to your hands or eye pillow isn't working for you, you can also turn your head to the side. But obviously if you're staying in this posture for a bit of time, because I usually recommend between 1 and 3 minutes minimum, if possible, longer if you can, and that's feeling good. But you really don't need to stay very long in order to feel effects. If you are turning your head to the side, just make sure that you're kind of evening it out, turning your head to one side and then the other, so that you're just not laying too long in one position. But I mean, I'm sure it's going to be fine. Okay, so I'll just demo for you one last time and I'll go quiet so you can kind of see the full setup, so that you've got a bit of an idea where we're going. And as you're in that position, ideally you want to be able to give yourself a bit of time to settle in. So usually when I teach this particular posture, I will offer a kind of guided tour in order to help to gently bring awareness to different parts of the body and hopefully create some space to settle down. What I will do is offer you an audio clip of a meditation, a guided kind of check-in and meditation that you can practice along if you like, and I will put that somewhere else, because this is more of a kind of set up and explore your props kind of video. Okay, so just one last time for the road, remember you can take or leave the back blanket, and I'll just remove it so you've got a bit of context there, and then come on down. So there should be no tweaking or crunching anywhere. Ideally, you want to feel like the whole of the front body can settle towards the floor and hopefully feel quite nice. Okay, so in order to come out, you just want to take it nice and slow. And I often like to go via hands and knees, or if it's feeling accessible, child's pose. Sometimes I take that blanket with me and just kind of pull it back in order to support my belly. And then gently come on up. So maybe you were practicing along with me, maybe not, that's a-okay, but I really hope that this video was helpful in order to support you in setting up for face down burrito pose. There's also another video that I have which is supported child's pose, which has a kind of similar effect. So if that feels a bit more accessible for you and you want to explore it, I'll also link that for you in the description box. But as always, if you've got any questions about this or explorations you want to share, leave a comment below. Thank you so much for practicing with me.